Hey guys, welcome to season 2 of Rockstars of Ethereum, a show about the journey and the awesome work people are doing in Ethereum and Web3 as a whole, aka Rockstars of Ethereum. I'm Richa.
And I'm Harsh from
Ethereum
Push Notification
Service.
Perfect synchronization.
Yep. So today we have someone who all builders probably know about, the fun way by which developing on Ethereum has become a breeze. We are, of course, talking about the guy who created Scaffold ETH, ETH.bill, and so many awesome cool tools. Of course, you cannot forget about the awesome wacky videos that he creates. We are talking about the one and only Austin Griffith. Hey, Austin, how are you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. Doing well.
Okay, cool. Let's do it.
That's like I do that like on every recording, like right before, or like right as I hit recording, I just kind of like get it going. Yeah.
Yes. Let's go. All right. Okay.
Is it like the dancing step, or is it like
I don't know? Yeah, it's like it's just like a
let me have
like
it.
The way the screen works is kind of like you got a lot of real estate to play with up here. Yeah, I got my ETH2 node going in the background. You know, get it going, warm it up. Gotta look like a streamer. How are you guys doing? How's EP&S? We already talked about it. Some of this. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So Austin, before we begin, we usually do a single bit wherein we tell our users like how we met our guest. In real life. So how we met Austin. So guys, this is actually one of the recent ones and probably something really, really wacky and cool. The time was actually midnight. I don't know if Austin remembers that or not. Maybe a bit later than midnight. The place was RRW, or the rave party at ListCon. We were dancing the night on the away with a literal unicorn besides our side. And we turned to our right and we see Austin Griffith. Of course, being the geeks we are, we had to go and say hi. So the conversations went something like this. Hey, Austin, I'm Harsh from Ethereum Push Notification Service. And he replied, yeah, man, we all need notifications. I think on hindsight, he was just being the good guy and wanted to just, show us off. Or maybe not. Maybe he knew what we were doing. We will find out about. But yeah, on that note, let's get started.
Sure.
Lisbon was fun. I remember dancing. That was a good time.
That was an amazing time.
Was awesome.
Yeah. So Austin, maybe kick things off by just asking you. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and all the cool things that you're building right now?
Word, yeah. So I think Scaffold ETH is like a cool place to start. Like Scaffold ETH is a tool for rapidly building apps. It's also kind of helps you get up to speed with Solidity. Like Solidity, the syntax, you should be able to get the syntax in a weekend, right? But then there's all these gotchas and weird things about Ethereum that just learning the mental model is interesting. So going beyond Scaffold ETH is like the speed run, and I'll paste it into the chat here. I don't know if we can share it or something, but the speed run is sort of like, here's how you get the mental model of Scaffold, of Solidity and building on Ethereum, and how kind of Web3 is different from Web2. And it's meant to kind of like upgrade you from a Web2 developer to a Web3 developer. So that's Scaffold ETH, that's the speed run. Then it's kind of like, as people go through that, I'm streaming ETH to a bunch of builders to build things, and that's the Build Guild. And I can show off more of that too. Like we could dive in and do a quick little Scaffold ETH demo if you guys wanted to, but also like, notifications are important. Like being able to get notifications about blockchain events that is an important thing to me for sure. I wasn't just having a great time at midnight in Lisbon.
Thanks for the very generous plug-in, Austin. So just want to, probably time travel time. Would love to know what you were doing before you ventured into Web3, crypto, the space as a whole, and what made you take the plunge?
I was like doing like DevOps work. I built this like piece of software that allowed you to deploy microservices to your own little cloud and kind of scale the cloud and go from prototyping to product quickly. And it was within a company, and that company didn't let me open source it and wouldn't let me open source it. And so there's like all this like cool stuff that could have happened from collaboration and open source stuff, but I didn't get to do it. But I was in a deep dive on Docker and DevOps and totally missed Ethereum for quite a while, right? And then it like probably 2017 is when I found Ethereum and then started building games and tools and all sorts of stuff within Ethereum. But I think DevOps and I did like Facebook games before that, just like building things that I like to build things that people use, and building games and building tools are the types of things that people need to use.
Absolutely, absolutely. And talking about all the tools that people use, I mean, as builders, like so many people use the tools and tutorials that you have built. But I'm really intrigued to know, what were the tools and tutorials you used when you began your journey? What was your Kickstarter?
Yeah, I think I remember doing the truffle box thing. The truffle box tutorial was one of the first ones, and it was like, it was hard. I got a lot of things wrong. I didn't understand a lot of things. One thing that really did bring me in was like Jordan Lay did this video series where he worked through like bringing up an AWS machine and connecting it to Ethereum and writing a few like node scripts that kind of talk to Ethereum, and it like made it make a lot more sense to me. And then so from there it was like I started building things, couldn't figure out truffle very well. I ended up building my own orchestration software called Clevis that did like all the node deploying of contracts and stuff, but and testing and orchestration. It was kind of like my backend. And then I built Dapparatus. So I had Clevis and Dapparatus, which is now kind of like what Scaffold ETH is, but with hard hat instead of Clevis or truffle. It has hard hat and then like a React app with a bunch of components, which is what Dapparatus used to be. So it's kind of like I got into the space, used truffle box. It kind of like didn't work very well for me. I started building other things, realized I want to focus on tools, built some of those tools. They weren't very good. Other people built better tools. We iterated on the tools, and then kind of like Scaffold ETH came out of a lot of that kind of combining of things, and finally like the product finally like resonates and makes sense now. And like I was building a stack early and like no one cared because it wasn't very good. Like Clevis, like not very many people use Clevis, right? But having hard hat, like a well-known kind of environment that a lot of people are using, is a lot easier for people to onboard to, and a lot better product in general. So it's nice to have a lot of that composability in the space. Truffle wasn't great, but it still works. I think a lot of people learn from Truffle, but I'm a hard hat fan now.
Got it. Noted. And I mean, you've worked on so many projects, Austin. Like, what's been your favorite amongst all of them? I mean, any particular reason why it's your favorite?
So there's this. I mean, we have a bunch of projects, but like SVG NFTs are really fun right now. And there's this specific project where we made loogies, which were like these really easy to make SVG NFTs. But then there's a loogie tank where it's an NFT that holds the other NFTs. And we realized that if an NFT can render itself, you want to make that a public function. So then if you send that NFT to another NFT that owns it, so it's like a tank and it holds it, when it renders itself, it can look through all of its inventory and call the render functions on its inventory. And you can see like kind of a live picture of all the NFTs inside of another NFT. So weird composability, NFT ownership, SVG, like rendering in the smart contract. I feel like that's probably the most like geeky kind of fun. But then on the other side, the speed run and Scaffold ETH in general is like my favorite project, just because it's effective and people are using it and people are building things with it. So seeing people learn and seeing people build, like I can build something that's really fun over here that 4 people use, but if I build something that's like effective and lots of people use it, then that's by far going to be my favorite thing. So niche fun thing, loogie tanks, real actual projects like this Ethereum speed run and Scaffold ETH. Awesome.
And I was listening to all the cool tools, and I'm also a hard hat fan myself. I mean, ELF5 guys, if you want to use console.logs and smart contract, hard hat. So yeah. So Austin, I think it's time to show some of those projects. Let's start with whatever is your favorite and go for it. I mean, huge fan of Scaffold ETH. That's
Awesome.
How we also started. So yeah.
Great. Yeah. And like ask questions along the way as we go too. But so you can just like Google Scaffold ETH and you'll end up at a repo. It's basically just a GitHub repo with a bunch of components and hard hat and everything you need. You kind of follow these instructions, you'll clone it down. But you basically will bring up So here is our web server with yarn start. Here is our hard hat node with yarn chain. And then you'll do a yarn deploy. And you can kind of get in this rhythm of doing a yarn deploy. I can make that a little bit bigger so we can see it. And this is kind of the heart of Scaffold ETH, is getting in this development loop where you have your contract here, and then you have your front end over here. And kind of as you make changes to this contract, let's just add some extra exclamation points to some string that we're storing here and deploy it. Hopefully add the extra, some of this. There we go. Let's see how our exclamation points kind of showed up over here, and we can see it. So you could do something like create a uint 256. Oh, whoops. There we go. 256 public counter, and we can set it equal to 5, and I could deploy that, and we'll have a counter over here, right? And then you could create a function increment that will increment the counter, right? Something like that. We can just kind of keep deploying these things, and we can see our app kind of updating, kind of hot reloading as these things come in. And then over here, if we want to tinker with our contract, it allows us to kind of poke this button. Now, this isn't going to work. It's going to throw an error at me because I don't have any ETH. And this is going to lead us to this nice button that's going to lead us to burner wallets. So burner wallets are kind of weird. There's no MetaMask connected here, right? So if I open up an incognito window and I open up another local host, we're going to see that there's kind of 2 accounts here. See how we have one account over here and one account over here? And if I destroy that and bring up another one and go to localhost, it'll be a new account. So these accounts are very ephemeral, but they're great for testing. So if I copy this address and go over here and send this dude $10, see how like there's blocky previews and it's displaying the addresses, and it's like giving you this thing where if you click the amount, it kind of switches between all those components kind of come out of the box with Scaffold ETH, along with these burner wallets that let you interact with things. Okay, so finally I'm going to get to increment my counter over here. Now that I have some gas from the faucet, notice like no MetaMask pop-ups or anything. Right now I'm just figuring out how I want to make this counter work, and I want to have some other function that like requires that the counter be some value and then something else happen, right? Like you can quickly kind of prototype how you want your Solidity to work as you're kind of banging on it over here with your front end and poking at it. But then once you kind of have it working, you almost have a decent front end already talking to your contract. So you're able to just yarn build and yarn deploy your website too. And then there's a whole like example UI that helps you like, here's how you call purpose. Like this is calling this set purpose function with just a button, and it shows you kind of in the React how you would go about like, here's how you call that function from in the React. Here's the example views. Yeah. So like here's different buttons and what you can click to make those buttons. Yeah. So set purpose, and it's just like showing you how you can make your interface, having a nice dynamic interface, but letting you iterate on your Solidity, learn Solidity, try new things, have this thing auto adapt and let you kind of poke and feel at your contract, and then deploy a whole app. Like it's just kind of like an app prototyping tool from there. So that's the quick and dirty on Scaffold ETH. Should we explore this more? Yeah, go ahead.
That's really amazing. I just wanted to let people know, like whoever are joining in and whoever are very new to Solidity or are just a general users. So guys, before Scaffold ETH, the way to do all of these things, it would have taken you at least 10 or 12 hours to set up, and leave alone the hot loading of smart contracts. You had to deploy on a blockchain, then you had to change your app, and then you will basically go ahead with the development. So Scaffold ETH kind of changed everything, put everything on steroids. So yeah. All right, awesome. Let's go for another cool tool you're talking about. Whatever is your favorite.
Whatever. So let's say you've got Scaffold ETH installed and you're wanting to learn Solidity. What your next steps are right here in the repo. There's some docs that'll help you get started. But once you get started, it's really just iterating on that contract, iterating on the front end. But you want to follow these steps. Now the Solidity docs are great. Like hit this docs page and talk and work through some of they kind of talk through, where it's good to use. But Solidity by example is probably one of my favorites. It has just all these different topics here. So, and I've highlighted the topics that I want you to go through. So it's just like, go learn primitives and data types, go learn mapping, structs, modifiers, events, inheritance, just like get the syntax down. And you do that by doing this, like, okay, what's a mapping? Let's go grab a mapping. Okay, so my map, okay, we'll bring it in over here, right? And we'll do that loop over here where we deploy it. And now we've got a map over here in our front end. And what can we do with that? Well, like, what if we set like my map and then like this dude, and we set it to 54 for some reason, and we deploy it. So this is what I'm talking about, like learn the syntax, learn how to create a mapping, learn how a mapping works, kind of poke at the mapping. If we go to my map and we paste in our address, hopefully that should be 54 now, right? So go through these topics within the repo. Yeah, there we go, and kind of learn those, and that's getting the syntax. So once you've got the syntax down, now you're dangerous. You're sort of at the top of the Dunning-Kruger, and you feel like you can do anything, and you understand everything about decentralized applications. You're just getting started. There's so many gotchas and interesting things, and that's where I say follow this full speed run. So it has you go through this stuff, but then it kind of gets into all the gotchas and interesting things. So you'll set up an NFT branch, you'll deploy some NFTs, you'll send them around to burner wallets like we did just now, but then you'll start to get into challenges. So the first challenge walks you through building a staking app. And this is sort of the superpower of Ethereum, like getting a bunch of adversarial parties to coordinate and be able to work together financially to do something without being able to grief each other or steal each other's money or anything like that. They only have to trust the code. So you have to write the code correctly so they can all trust it. So they can either get in and have that state machine go to a successful state or have that state machine go to a withdraw state. So you'll kind of like learn what Ethereum is as you're building on Ethereum. Then the next one is a token vendor. You build an ERC20 token, you build a vendor that vends that token. The interesting thing here is you have to learn the approve pattern, and you have to build it kind of in the front end. First, you need a button that has it approve, and then you need a second button that does the transfer and like why that's important. Then we go through kind of like, here's like early versions of Uniswap. Here's a DEX that works in a smart contract, like a very simple DEX that works in Solidity. And then, tokens, lending, oracles are important, right? Oracles and commit reveal and randomness. Like randomness is really tricky on chain. So we take you through a couple of those. And signed messages are kind of an interesting thing you can do with key pairs. So you kind of like go through, just like speed run this whole mental model here to get the knowledge. But then it's like, okay, now I get why. And just like a quick little alpha leak, it's not released yet, but we're kind of upgrading this into kind of a little social network where people can go to speedrunethereum.com and they can kind of take on these challenges. And as you take on the challenges, you can basically submit them to the network, and basically you submit them by signing your challenge. But then there's all this, like this big list of builders and all the builds that they're building, and everyone kind of crafts their own portfolio. And there's like this whole grading and submissions. So here's a bunch of people that have kind of turned in their different challenges, and I need to get in here and review them and possibly build an auto grader, an activity feed, right? There's a feed of all the engineers kind of putting in their challenges. So that's still in alpha. That's a beta. That's not ready for release yet, but it's there if you want to go try to speed run it. Yeah. So let's see. We did Solidity, or we did Scaffolding, then we did kind of like learning Solidity. Then it's like learning the mental model of Ethereum in general using the speed run. I probably have more products we can go into, but where are we at? Let me check in with you guys. I'm talking too much.
Got it. Nope. This is so amazing, Austin. So we have conducted Twitter Spaces before, and people, especially developers, they join in and they ask like what to do, how to get started. And I tell them, go check out Scaffold ETH. But guys, if you're listening, just, follow what Austin said. That's all you need. In fact, you go back to, speedrun Ethereum. That's all you need. And everybody builds on that. You check our repo, it's built on Scaffolded. Go to repo branch 1, branch 2 commit, you'll see that. So yeah.
We need more. Right, there's not enough people building with Scaffolding. I see so many projects. It's like, oh man, that took you 3 weeks and you could have done that first part. You could have prototyped and kind of like tinkered around in the product space a lot and figured out where it works, and then kind of build out the app instead of having to build out the contract, build out the app, and then see if it works. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No. That process sucks. I can
Yeah.
tell because I've
Yeah.
been through that process. It's so hard. Scaffolding is so much better and hard hat. I mean, the combination of both of them,
Yeah. Hard hat.
that's
So
kind
great.
of like the deadly
Yep.
pointer. And create a tab. I mean, I like them
Ooh,
as well.
we should do a console log here. Hold on. Let's do a console log of the counter after we increment it, right? And let's even do like this counter. We'll even put a string in there, right? Like, what are they doing? Console log and strings and smart contracts, no problem, right? What happens over here when we run increment now? We should see, yeah, there's counter 9. There's a console log counter 8. There we go. So when you're doing some complex stuff in here, now you can just throw it in a console log and read it over here on this screen.
Yep, crazy,
Ooh,
right?
hard hat. Yeah, so cool. And it's also crazy that that's like really impressive to us. Like that shows you how new we like still are in the space. Yeah.
Awesome. So this was an amazing speed run of speed run. Let's go probably back to some of the other cool questions we have. So we also put a Twitter thread out, like, what do you want us to ask Austin Griffith? And a lot of people just replied to that thread. So I'm just going to go through some of those questions first. So one of them is like, what are the unique challenges of Web3 or infrastructure tooling project?
What are the complexities of infrastructure in Web3? Is that right? Well, like building something that's decentralized is like a million times harder than building something that's centralized. Like and really, okay, so let's just talk about having decentralized file hosting. I have it on my machine, but if not a lot of people, if people don't have it on their machine, then it's not decentralized, right? So immediately I have to have some kind of like value at the protocol to say like, you have to be incentivized to host my file so I keep my file up. And all of a sudden that's like, now we're talking about like economic problems and game theory problems and things that are not like scaling horizontally, but like scaling how things like how a complex system works together. Kind of like rolling that back a little bit, going back to my target audience. If you're a Web2 person trying to get into Web3, think about this same mental model shift or this paradigm shift of like a cron job. I talk about this a lot, where in Web2 you had a cron job that could check in every once in a while, right? In Web3, when you try to have a cron job check in, it's like you can't have a single machine checking in because it's not decentralized. That can fall over. Think about the thing that it's checking into. This smart contract is running on thousands of machines at the same time. And you can talk to any of those thousands of machines to get that information. And you have to write a transaction to a blockchain to update it, right? So that's really redundant. Having a one node check-in for a cron job is going to fall over, and that's not decentralized at all. So to make a cron job, you have to set the rules in your smart contract in which someone can check in anyone can check in once every 24 hours, and they get paid a little bit of money for doing so. And by building that incentive and writing your rules correctly, you have a cron job that runs, right? But same thing with infrastructure, right? Infrastructure is super tricky because you don't just need one copy of it, you need a lot of copies of it, and you need to incentivize having lots of copies of it. And that's a whole like bowl of worms to get into and figure out, and gigabrain stuff, right? We want the gigabrains to figure it out for us so we can build products on top of it.
Yep. And that's very well explained. So yeah, I think we can do an ELI 5 for NFTs as well, Austin. What's your take on NFT ELI 5?
Yeah. Okay. So explain like I'm 5 NFTs.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So it's like a really thin ownership layer. It's like we have a little book that says who owns what, right? If we were in the house, if I was explaining to my 5-year-old, I would say we have a little book and it says Gus owns this Lego set and Leo, my other son, owns this Lego set. And we all agree to that book. We all agree of who owns what. And sure, Leo can go make he can make his own book that says Leo owns all of them, but we don't trust that. We trust the one that we all work together on, right? So an NFT is just a little ownership layer that says this person owns this NFT. Then you can kind of transition to that. So ERC 721 is NFT. ERC 20 is just a token. It's a fungible token, right? And it's again a little ledger of who owns what. But in this case, instead of saying token 1 is owned by this person, it's the other way around. It says this person has 20 of these things. So the ownership layer is just flipped a little bit, but again, it's just like an ownership mechanic, some mapping between something and an address. That's probably not explain like I'm 5. Cut some of that out for explain like I'm 5. But yeah, Gus and Leo is the explain like I'm 5. Some of it is a little choppy. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So another question, and this comes straight from DeFi Dad. So what are the differences builders have to consider when they're building on Ethereum or another EVM chain or non-EVM chain, and how to decide whether to build where?
I feel like that might be a slow pitch for me because I'm an EVM maximalist. It's so hard to get in and learn all of these tools and syntax and gotchas and why they're powerful and why they're not powerful, that then when you have to change to another one and learn a whole different execution environment, like it's complicated and it's tricky. So right now, like I'm just an EVM maximalist. Like I'm not saying I'm an Ethereum maximalist, but I'm an EVM maximalist just because that's what all my tools work for. If I have to deploy to a different system and none of my tools work there, I'm going to be back to square one, right? The fact that all the tools here, the fact that like other people are using this tool and creating hundreds of other branches means that like when I want to go learn about a specific thing, there's already a branch that someone else has created in my own toolkit that's like really easy for me to navigate and build on top of. So just because of composability, I'm pretty much an EVM maximalist, but I'm open, right? Like Web3 is not going to be a one man scene. So Web3 as we think of decentralization and moving forward, the best tool for the job, I think.
All right, that's really well put. And I'll take EVM maximalist anytime. All right, another one from CT. So this comes from one of the very early developers, and this is a fun question. So how not to procrastinate? And
man, that's hard, right? It's so hard. Like there's and then when you have 30 things to do, and since you have 30 things, it's hard to focus on the one thing. Like foot in front of you, you just have to start on something and know that like just make progress, right? Just get something done. Every once in a while I have problems, like I have 8 different things going on. I have problems focusing on a single task. I do this super weird thing. I turn on the camera and basically it's like rubber ducking, but I turn on the camera and I force myself to focus on that single task because the imaginary person looking at me is going to judge me for bouncing around all over the place. So I just turn it on, I hit go, and I focus on like, I'm going to get that one task done. And I do it like on camera just to force myself to do it. So weird, maybe whatever the weird hack is that gets you to just put one foot in front of the other and get going, that's probably the key.
Awesome. So that's awesome advice. So another advice, just ask your sibling or your parents or anyone to just stand there while you are
hold you accountable. Yeah.
And judge.
Yeah, judge. You need some judging. Yeah, exactly. Shame. Yeah.
All right. On that note, Austin, I would love to ask, like, what's next for you? What are the plans for 2022? And how do you see the Web3 ecosystem growing at large?
We have a lot of changes coming up in the future that are like gigabrain changes with the merge coming up, right? And proof of stake. But like that's so far out of my realm that I'm just like trusting the gigabrains to get that done. I build on top of that layer, right? But the thing that I think I'm really excited about that I can specifically kind of have an impact other than in education is in like L2s and ramping into L2s and having, there's an experience that we're going to get that we've been waiting for so long. And it's basically fast, quick, and secure transactions. And it's going to happen on some L2 or both L2s or a bunch of L2s. And at the same time, mainstream audiences are going to be able to ramp directly into those L2s. So I can build a game that you can just, open up on a tablet. You don't have to have a wallet or anything. You can just interact with it with a burner wallet. You can ramp right in, so you can swipe a credit card and put $5 in, and then you can play that thing and it could settle to L1 and actually mint an NFT after I'm done with all that or something. And I think that experience is something that is table stakes. That experience is table stakes for mainstream audiences. So for them to get in and use it, we have to have all of those things in place. And I think this year we're finally going to have that in place. So that's probably like the biggest picture thing I'm excited about. But little picture, I'm all about education, and I'm all about like speedrun Ethereum. And I'm all about like Web2 developers discovering Web3, getting beyond the noise, and for like, yes, there are Ponzi schemes. It's a permissionless system and anybody can deploy it here. Like, yes, this is garbage, but look, there's a ton of innovation too. Here's a bunch of tools and things you can learn, and getting Web2 folks kind of over the hump of like you need to be critical about it at first, right? Because it seems like, oh, what are all these people talking about? Why are they so hyped up? Like, if you go in with stars in your eyes, you're going to get disappointed eventually. Be critical about it, understand it, but there is some really neat stuff here, and get in here and start innovating and building and learning, and your life will change in a weird way. I don't know how to say it, but it's true.
No, it's true. Less sleep, but somehow you're more excited.
Yeah.
And having fun. So yeah,
sure.
That concludes the first phase of the interview, Austin. So if I'm sure you haven't seen our podcast yet, but what do we have next is a rapid fire question that is customized for you. And Richa has done that. So yeah, go for it, Richa.
All right, rapid fire, here we go.
All right, let's go. Okay, Austin, are you ready?
Ready.
All right, so I'll just, give, say a few questions and maybe take 5-10 seconds to answer, and we'll go super fast. Hope that's okay.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so if you have to cosplay, who and what would it be?
Cosplay. Man, who's cool? Maybe Bender from Futurama. That's what I'm going with. Short answer. Bender from Futurama.
Great answer. Okay, somebody asked on Twitter, please ask Austin, where does he buy his bow ties from?
Ooh, bow ties you get from everywhere. Like, a lot of people will buy the cheap bow ties. The key with buying a good bow tie is buying the ones that you have to tie yourself. Find a good fabric, a good tying one. If they're already pre-tied, that's not a good bow tie. That's garbage.
There you go. Your favorite layer 2?
I don't know if that's like right now. Optimism is my favorite, but we shouldn't have favorites. Like Optimism, Arbitrum, Polygon, ZK Sync. There's so many great ones. Get in and use them. They're different things for being. Just recently, OE lowered their whitelist, so you can just follow a tutorial that I have, and you can deploy a contract with Scaffolding to mainnet Optimism in like 5 minutes. So yeah, Optimism is my favorite, but like, they're all great. They're all coming up. Like, let's not pick favorites.
All right. So do we own Web3 or not?
Oh, that's such a good question. And even like, there's this real subtlety, nuance of like, right now, Web3 education is huge. And Web3 education is even owned by a smaller subset of folks, and VCs are pouring money into it. So it's a really like loaded question, in the sense that Web3 at its essence is your key pair, and you owning everything, and your identity and your inventory following you from site to site. But how that develops and what develops around us, kind of like how Web 1 went to Web 2, we have to be careful of what gets captured here. And so like, with that nuance and subtlety of like, even right now, like Web3 is owned by not everyone. You own your thing, but like, there's still Web3 sites that I go to that have me put in a username and a password. Like, there's so many people don't get it yet, and we don't even get it. We're still learning what it is, right? So like, there's so much subtlety and nuance to that. The goal is, yes, we own Web3, right? The goal is that every protocol, platform, and thing that you build or use is somehow owned by you. Somehow you have agency within that network.
Right.
So yes, hopefully, yes, we own Web3, but it's a subtle and nuanced question, and money is always at stake in some place, and that's how it works.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Austin.
That was not a short answer.
No worries. So let's do this. Can you show us something which is at your workspace right now?
Oh man, well, the tablet was good. I mean, like, how about this is ETH1. and this is ETH2. So this is the beacon chain, and this is my validator, and this is my ETH1 node. And I actually have it pointed to my laptop right now instead, because I'm resyncing this as a full node. So it's going to take some time, but there's that there. I don't know if there's anything other.
Yeah, that counts, and very cool.
That counts.
All right. And what was the last Netflix series you binge watch?
Netflix, like Succession on HBO, but I don't know Netflix.
That's okay. Netflix.
Succession on HBO.
That works.
Yeah.
Netflix is not sponsored.
What a bunch of sociopaths, man. Succession is such a and a great ending. I won't ruin it for anybody, but it was a good series.
All right, awesome. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the following? Your favorite holiday?
I'm just like every day's a holiday for me. It sounds cheesy, but like there's this certain thing where you have to have this holiday so everyone gets together and has fun. It's like I'm already having fun. I don't need my weird uncle invited over to have fun. I don't even have a weird uncle, but like family time, being at home.
Okay.
Now that I have a family, it's like it's viewed through different lenses, right? Like I would go to a parade or a zoo and be like, this is weird. But now that I see it through my 5-year-old's eye, I'm like, this is awesome again. I'm getting it. So holidays are the same thing, like getting together and having those experiences together.
Amazing. That's so sweet. ETH killers.
I don't like, I'm an EVM maximalist. I think that if you're EVM compatible, then you're not killing the EVM, you're supporting it. And so in a weird way, like, I don't know, I'm terrible at seeing the future, but it seems like ETH killer is kind of like a word that just keeps popping up and not having any meaning. So I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully L2 is the ETH killer in the idea that we're talking about here. Like we will have a layer settling to mainnet mainnet Ethereum, and it will have that fast, cheap, secure. Bridges might be a little slower. There will be some trade-offs. There'll be some siloing, but overall we're going to have it, and we're going to also have L1, and it's going to settle to L1, right?
Yeah.
Got it. So we can go with doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, like L1 is expensive. There's a reason why we need an ETH killer, because like it's kind of like a rich kid's game, and that's not great for emerging economies and a lot of other reasons. But like also we're building that, and it's going to settle to L1, and L2 will settle to L1, and killing L1 doesn't make sense. Yeah. Got
it. Metaverse.
Oh, come on. It's another thing where like companies are like, they're taking it over. Like we're again, like we all still own our keys, and we have this idea of all of us having nodes in our house and everything. But then like when a bunch of money comes in and people co-opt these words, it's hard to fight against that. Like we're all decentralized. The problem with we don't have one central line of attack because we're all decentralized. So it's hard to do branding and messaging and have that marketing work correctly. Yeah. So we're fighting kind of a lost cause in terms of trying to beat Web2 framing. I don't know. Metaverse is a loaded term. I think we're all kind of living in the metaverse and doing this whole thing like in the metaverse already. And someone controlling it and taking the name and trying to do that is not metaverse to me.
That's pretty fair. How about multi-chain?
It is like it's a reality. I think that like when we talk about L1 having expensive fees, then there's got to be other layers or other chains. Things can happen cheap on one chain and settle to another chain, but then there's this thing where like a front end needs to actually look at 3 different chains and give you some kind of aggregate view of what your inventory looks like. Because even though your inventory is following you from site to site, it's in 3 different chains and kind of complicated. So it's happening. Even though I'm saying I'm an EVM maximalist, I think multi-chain is still kind of a reality, because mainstream NFT adoption happened during an L1 that was super expensive, and things sharded off in a bunch of directions. So yeah. It's just kind of the nature of how things worked out, I think.
Awesome. Is bear near?
I don't know. Is that like bear bull market? Is that what we're talking about? Oh man. I lived through Ethereum at $200 for 2 years, and it stayed at $200 for 2 years. And like, that was my life. And so like, I don't like, it was a quiet time. There weren't a ton of people. There weren't a ton of people hanging out. And people say that's great, but I think in the bull market, you see people's true colors too, and you see really good builders. So in both bear and bull markets have their pros and cons, but I try to stay away from it, honestly. Like, I don't know.
Awesome. Let's just keep building. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Your top 3 projects of Ethereum.
Ooh, dang. So I am a public goods hero champion. I like ENS, GTC, Gitcoin, Radical, and Uni are all tokens that were dropped to me that I'm able to use to pay developers to build more things on Ethereum. So those 4 projects alone have allowed me to fund hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of developer time. And so like that cycle, that virtuous cycle, and if I'm doing it, like who else is doing it? Like, how do we get more people doing it? So those projects are selfishly my favorites, right? I think ZK applications are really exciting, like Dark Forest and what those guys are pushing. Like anything that's driving mainstream adoption, like audio NFTs are exciting, and SVG NFTs. DeFi I don't get like super too deep into, so I don't know, but like yeah, I don't know. When Flash loans came out, that's magical to me, right? So like not particularly a project, but like a secret move or a combo move. We're learning new things. I don't know. CLR fund, like people who do more public good funding. There's so many that like I should have like a better list, and I should I have a bunch of friends with a bunch of great projects, and I'm not shilling them as well as I should be right now.
But all the projects that you mentioned are like super awesome, and they make Ethereum so vibrant. And finally, Austin, what does Ethereum mean to you?
So for me, I like to build things that people use, and it's a way for me to build a vending machine that anybody can go use, and they trust it, and the code is all written there. So for me as a builder, it's like a new tool. It's like Docker was to me, but then there's something more on top of it, where the community, decentralization, Web3, there's a movement that's happening kind of that I didn't even know was going to happen or I was going to be a part of. For me, it was just like the technology. So I think like Ethereum is this movement that I didn't even know that would happen around a technology that I love. But it's about decentralization. It's about innovation. One of the key pieces of Ethereum is being able to write a single line of code and create a new financial mechanism. So it's innovation. It's a layer in which you can build something decentralized and you can innovate very quickly with a couple lines of code here and there.
Got it. That's very well put. Yep. I mean, guys, really, Ethereum, you can change the entire banking system, and all you need is just to write a few lines of code. So yeah. All right.
I gotta show off some ETH build. Can I show off ETH build? Another random project?
Sure, go.
Do we have time? Yeah. Another place to tinker and learn about Web3 if you're just getting into Ethereum and learning the fundamentals is ETH.build. And ETH.build has kind of a sandbox and some videos, but also you can get in here and kind of like actually build some stuff where like you bring in a key pair and you see the private key and you see the address and you can generate that. Oops, I deleted it. But I just want to show that too. So people know that ETH build is out there, and it's another fun thing to play around with. Let's see if I can bring a mnemonic in here, show that mnemonic off, like generate. It's generating a new mnemonic every time, which then turns into an address. Then we could bring in like MetaMask and set up a transaction or get that guy's balance. Ooh, yeah, here we go. Get this dude's balance. No, that's not going to work. That's going to be my MetaMask balance. Anyways, that's ETH build. I feel like I wanted to show that off just because it was another shill and another good one to check out. But Speedrun Ethereum, if you're a Web2 developer.
Yeah. And you also have to check out the video of ETH build by Austin. That's amazing.
There's that one, the intro video was a lot of fun to make. Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, amazing Austin, for doing this interview. I mean, we had so much fun, and yeah, thank you so much for coming over here. All right. Awesome. Thanks, Austin. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Austin, so much.